I never imagined a single moment could shatter my quiet world. Yet, that fateful night, as the storm of emotions raged inside me, I knew my life was no longer the same. I was lying in bed when I first sensed it, a charged energy that pulled me from my sleep. The silence of my room was abruptly broken by the faint sound of a creak and a distant murmur of footsteps. With a racing heart, I swung my legs over the side of my bed and crept toward the door, every step filled with a mix of fear and anticipation. I lived alone in a house that felt emptier than ever since Mom left for her business trip that morning. The absence of her warm presence made every creak of the old wooden floor echo like a reminder of solitude. Yet, tonight was different. As I stepped into the softly lit hallway, I could almost feel the pulse of the night urging me to confront the unknown. In the living room, the shadows danced with the flickering light of a single lamp. There, standing near the window, was Tyler, someone I had known for years as a kind, steady presence. His expression was unreadable in the dim light, yet something in his eyes hinted at sorrow and unspoken longing. I remember thinking, "Who are you tonight?" as if he were a stranger carrying fragments of my hidden dreams. "Tyler?" I called out softly, my voice trembling with a mix of curiosity and the need for comfort. He slowly turned to face me, and in that instant, I felt the weight of every unsaid word between us. There was no dramatic confession, no overt passion, just a deep, unspoken understanding that connected us in that fleeting moment. "I came by because I sensed you might need someone tonight," he said, his tone gentle, almost like a secret promise. His words wrapped around me, stirring feelings that I had long kept hidden behind my daily routines and careful smiles. That night, under the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the curtains, I let myself share the truth. "I feel so lost," I admitted, the words spilling out in a whisper that barely filled the room. "Everything is shifting, and I don't know which way to turn." I had always believed in the strength of silence, but now I realized that vulnerability was the only way to embrace change. Tyler listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine. "Sometimes, the most important journeys begin when we dare to face our inner storms," he replied. His voice, calm yet resolute, made me believe that perhaps I wasn't as alone as I thought. In that quiet conversation, I felt an unexpected surge of hope, a feeling that even the darkest nights could lead to a brighter dawn. The hours passed in a blur of whispered confessions and shared silences. I couldn't pinpoint the moment when the tension between us softened into something more tender, a connection forged not by physical proximity, but by the raw power of genuine understanding. There was no scandalous drama, no explicit gestures, just the simple, profound truth that two souls could find solace in each other's presence. As the night deepened, I retreated back to my room with a mind buzzing with questions and a heart lighter than it had been in years. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our encounter. The memory of Tyler's gentle gaze and his quiet words resonated within me, urging me to believe that change was possible, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. The following morning, everything seemed normal at first. I went through my morning routine with a newfound resolve, determined to hold on to that fragile hope. The house was still quiet, the echoes of last night lingering like a secret promise. I could almost feel the presence of that connection as I sipped my coffee and prepared for the day ahead. Yet, as noon approached, I sensed a shift. During lunch, while I sat alone at the table, I reached for a strawberry from a bowl on the side. The simple act of savoring its sweetness became a quiet rebellion against the heaviness of my thoughts. It was a silent challenge to embrace life fully, even when everything seemed uncertain. In that moment of solitary defiance, I realized that every day was a chance to rewrite my story. The quiet rebellion of a simple act, like tasting the fresh sweetness of a strawberry, was a reminder that I was in control of my destiny. I wasn't defined by the empty spaces in my home or the quiet absence of my mother. I was defined by my willingness to seek connection, to risk vulnerability, and to step into the light of a new beginning. Tyler's parting words from the previous night echoed in my mind. "Remember, even the darkest moments can lead us to the brightest dawn." His words became a mantra as I navigated the rest of my day, a silent promise that I was not alone in facing life's storms. That afternoon, while walking through the quiet streets of my neighborhood, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The city around me was alive with its own rhythms, a contrast to the introspection that now filled my heart. I realized that change was inevitable, and that sometimes the most profound transformations begin with the courage to simply feel. Later, I found a quiet spot in the local park. Seated beneath an old oak tree, I opened my journal and began to write, pouring out my thoughts in an attempt to capture the whirlwind of emotions that had overtaken me. Every word on the paper was a declaration of hope, a commitment to embrace life with all its uncertainties. In that moment of solitude, I allowed myself to dream of a future where I was brave enough to love, to trust, and to find joy in the unexpected twists of fate. As dusk approached, the sky turned a brilliant shade of orange and pink, a breathtaking reminder that every ending was also a beginning. I closed my journal and took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. The events of the night before had shifted something deep within me, a quiet determination that I would no longer let fear dictate my life. Returning home as the first stars began to appear in the twilight, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The quiet house, now filled with the echoes of my thoughts and the promise of new connections, no longer felt empty. It was as if every shadow and every whisper had been waiting for me to rediscover my inner strength. I ended the day by gazing out of my window, watching the night slowly blanket the world in its gentle embrace. The memory of Tyler's kind words and the brief but powerful connection we shared remained with me, a guiding light in the darkness. I knew that my journey was just beginning, that the choices I made tonight would ripple into tomorrow, shaping a future filled with hope and possibility. This was my moment, a turning point where the quiet despair of solitude transformed into the bold determination to seek out a life filled with genuine connection and heartfelt courage. And as I drifted off to sleep, I embraced the thought that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them, guided by the promise that every dark night eventually gives way to a brilliant new dawn. The morning after that transformative night, I awoke with a quiet determination pulsing through my veins. The sun had barely peeked over the horizon when I found myself already scribbling thoughts into my journal, a ritual that had become my refuge during these tumultuous days. Each word on the page was a testament to my inner resolve, an effort to understand the shifts in my heart and mind that had been set in motion by that unforgettable encounter with Tyler. I left my room with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The house, though still marked by the absence of my mother, now echoed with an undercurrent of possibility. I wandered through familiar hallways with fresh eyes, as if each step was a silent pledge to explore the unknown parts of myself. Today, I resolved, was the day I would face the lingering shadows of my past and embrace the promise of a brighter future. At breakfast, I noticed a subtle change in my routine. Even the simplest acts, savoring a cup of tea, the rhythmic clink of cutlery against porcelain, seemed imbued with meaning. My mind drifted back to Tyler's gentle words from the night before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was not only a comforting presence but also a mirror reflecting parts of myself I had long forgotten. His idea that sometimes the inner storm is the gateway to transformation resonated deeply with me, urging me to confront my uncertainties with courage. Later in the day, as I took a walk through the neighborhood, I allowed my thoughts to wander freely. The world outside was awash with the soft hues of early afternoon, and the rhythmic cadence of life offered solace. I passed by a small park, where children's laughter mingled with the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. The simplicity of the scene reminded me that beauty could be found even in ordinary moments. Yet beneath that beauty, I sensed a quiet struggle, an echo of the personal battles each of us must face. The walk eventually led me to a quaint coffee shop on the corner of my street, a haven of warmth and soft conversations. I settled into a cozy chair by the window and ordered a caramel latte, my mind buzzing with anticipation for what the day might hold. It was in that moment, while lost in a book of poetry that I had borrowed from the local library, that I felt a presence beside me. I looked up to see Tyler sitting across the room, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. Our eyes met, and in that fleeting exchange, an unspoken acknowledgement passed between us. There was no need for extravagant gestures. The silent language of shared understanding was enough. He motioned for me to join him at his table, and with a nod, I set aside my book and walked over. As I sat down, the aroma of freshly ground coffee and the soft murmur of conversation created a cocoon of intimacy that made it easier to set aside my reservations. "Hi, Emily," Tyler began, his voice gentle yet laced with a quiet intensity. "I've been thinking about our conversation last night. How are you holding up today?" His concern was palpable, and for a moment, I felt that familiar surge of vulnerability. I smiled, appreciating his sincerity. "I'm trying to navigate through all these feelings," I admitted. "It feels like I'm unraveling threads I didn't even know were tangled." I paused, gathering the courage to be honest. I've always been afraid of confronting my own fears. But last night, with you, I felt something shift. I'm ready to explore who I truly am, even if it scares me. Tyler's eyes softened, and he leaned in slightly. Sometimes, the most profound changes come when we step into the unknown. I, too, have struggled with letting go of the past. I think we both have stories that we'd rather keep hidden, but maybe it's time we embrace them, transform them into something that empowers us rather than holds us back. Our conversation flowed naturally from there, touching on memories of childhood, moments of heartache, and the small triumphs that had defined our lives. With each shared word, I felt as if I were shedding a layer of the old me, a version shackled by fear and isolation, and stepping into a space where vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness. The hours slipped by, and soon it was time to part ways. We exchanged promises to meet again, our voices low and earnest as if afraid that speaking too loudly might shatter the delicate magic that had been created. As I walked back home, the city's rhythm pulsed around me, a living tapestry of hopes and dreams interwoven with the quiet resolve of those who dared to change. I felt a newfound clarity and gratitude for the unexpected connections that had emerged from the most uncertain moments. That evening, back at home, I returned to my journal, determined to capture every nuance of the day's revelations. My pen danced across the pages as I wrote about the unexpected kindness of strangers, the shared glances with Tyler, and the subtle but powerful shift in my own inner landscape. Each word was a declaration of intent, a promise to myself that I would no longer hide behind the walls of solitude and fear. Yet, even as I embraced this newfound hope, lingering doubts tugged at the edges of my consciousness. Was I ready to face the full scope of my past? Could I truly let go of the regrets that had haunted me for so long? As I pondered these questions, I realized that the journey ahead would not be without its challenges. Transformation was rarely a smooth path. It was marked by moments of uncertainty, setbacks, and the constant interplay between pain and growth. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, I felt prepared to walk that path, even if the destination was still shrouded in mystery. Late into the night, as I sat on the balcony gazing at the stars, a gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying with it whispers of distant dreams. In that quiet moment, I allowed myself to believe in the beauty of change. I thought about how the threads of my life, once tangled and chaotic, were slowly unraveling into a pattern that was uniquely mine. The silence of the night was not empty. It was filled with the promise of renewal, of a future where every challenge would become a stepping stone towards something greater. I recalled Tyler's parting words from our earlier encounter, words that had lingered like a soft melody in my heart. Sometimes, the inner storm is the gateway to transformation. In the stillness of that night, those words echoed with profound clarity. I realized that, despite the uncertainties that lay ahead, I had already taken the first brave steps toward reclaiming my story. I was no longer content to be a passive observer of my own life. I was ready to be the author of my destiny. The night grew deeper, and as I prepared for sleep, I felt a sense of anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. The transformation I had begun was not an end, but rather a new beginning, a journey marked by self-discovery, resilience, and the power of genuine connection. As I closed my eyes, I whispered a quiet promise to myself that I would continue to embrace every moment, however challenging, and that I would never be afraid to let my true self shine through the darkness. In that tender moment of solitude, with the stars as silent witnesses, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next. The threads of my past were slowly weaving into a tapestry of hope and possibility, and I felt empowered by the knowledge that I was capable of change. With a heart full of quiet determination, I surrendered to sleep, carrying with me the promise of a new dawn, a dawn that would illuminate the path toward a future where fear gave way to strength, and every dark night eventually led to the brightest light. The days that followed felt both exhilarating and unnerving. I woke with a sense of urgency that had become my constant companion, a drive to discover what lay hidden behind the carefully constructed facade of my past. Each morning, as sunlight broke through my window, it illuminated more than just the empty corners of my quiet house. It also revealed the lingering shadows of memories I was ready to face. I had resolved to no longer hide behind fear, and though uncertainty still clouded my future, I felt a powerful pull to step forward and reclaim every piece of myself. Tyler became more than just a comforting presence. He was the unexpected guide who showed me that transformation was possible. His thoughtful glances and measured words offered a mirror to my own hidden sorrows and untapped hopes. We met often, sometimes for a quiet coffee at the little shop on the corner, other times during long walks when the city's hum softened into a gentle lullaby. In every conversation, there was an unspoken understanding that we were both on a journey of healing. His insights, drawn from his own battles with loss and regret, inspired me to question the assumptions I had long accepted about my own worth. One afternoon, while wandering through the local park, I found myself drawn to the old stone bench beneath a sprawling oak. The leaves rustled in a whisper, as if urging me to sit and listen to my own thoughts. There, in the solitude of nature, I allowed myself to cry freely, for the pain of old mistakes, for the burden of expectations, and for the dreams that had been set aside for too long. The raw vulnerability of that moment was both painful and liberating. I realized that true change began with accepting all parts of me, even those I had once considered too fragile to reveal. That evening, as twilight painted the sky with hues of purple and gold, I returned home with a newfound resolve. I sat at my desk and began writing down my fears, my regrets, and the small moments of hope that had sparked a light in the darkness. Each word on the page was a declaration, a promise to myself that I would no longer allow past sorrows to dictate my future. I wrote about the laughter of forgotten days, about the tender moments when someone reached out without asking, and about the quiet bravery it took to simply be present in my own life. Tyler's words echoed in my mind during these long nights. The inner storm is the gateway to transformation. I began to see my emotional turbulence not as a curse, but as a powerful force that could propel me into uncharted territories of growth. In the silence of my room, I made a silent vow to confront the unresolved questions of my past. I was determined to uncover the truths I had long buried, truths about who I was, what I truly wanted, and the person I had yet to become. The process was not without moments of despair. There were nights when doubts crept in, whispering that change was too dangerous, too overwhelming to pursue. But then I would remember the soft strength in Tyler's eyes and the warmth of his quiet encouragement. I recalled how his gentle presence had shown me that vulnerability could be a source of power, not weakness. Slowly, the fortress I had built around my heart began to crumble, brick by brick, until I was left with nothing but the raw, unguarded truth of my emotions. As the weeks passed, I found myself transforming in subtle yet profound ways. I became more attuned to the beauty in small gestures, a kind smile from a stranger, the comforting murmur of a familiar song, the peaceful solitude of a starlit night. Every experience, every fleeting moment of connection, reinforced the belief that I was capable of change. I was no longer defined by my past mistakes or haunted by memories of what I had lost. Instead, I embraced the possibility of a future where each day offered a new chance to rediscover myself. Standing on the threshold of this unfolding journey, I knew the road ahead would not always be smooth. There would be setbacks and moments of doubt, but with every step forward, I was learning to trust in the unseen forces that guided me. In embracing the unknown, I had discovered a resilience that I never knew existed within me, a strength born from vulnerability and the quiet courage to face the deepest parts of my soul. And so, with a heart both tender and determined, I continued onward, ready to embrace every secret the night had yet to reveal. In the final stretch of my journey, I found myself standing at the crossroads of the past and the future. The tumultuous storms of emotion that had once threatened to overwhelm me had finally begun to subside, replaced by a calm acceptance and a determination to move forward. Each day had been a step toward healing, a step away from the old fears that had once defined me. Tyler's presence, always gentle and reassuring, had guided me through the darkest moments. His unwavering support had taught me that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but the very essence of courage. As I looked back on the challenges I had faced, I recognized how each trial had revealed my hidden strength. I had learned to embrace the pain of my past as a teacher rather than a tormentor, transforming sorrow into a foundation for growth. Now, as the first light of a new dawn broke through the horizon, I felt a quiet resolve fill my soul. The memories that had once haunted me were slowly being replaced by hope and the promise of renewal. In the soft glow of morning, I opened my journal one final time and wrote down my reflections, a heartfelt record of the journey from isolation to connection, from despair to empowerment. I stepped outside, the crisp air carrying away remnants of uncertainty, and welcomed the day with a smile. The city stirred with life, its vibrant energy a reminder that every ending is merely the start of a new chapter. I had learned that change is inevitable, but it also brings endless opportunities for reinvention. In that moment, I knew that I was ready to live fully, to love freely, and to accept every part of myself. The night's shadows had given way to a brilliant dawn, a symbol of transformation and the enduring power of hope. Today, I began again, not as a victim of my past, but as the author of a future filled with promise and light.